Luna, even as a meme coin at the time, can be worth a lot of money because it's listed everywhere.
Meme coin is like literally, I know kids
Mhm.
who are like 16 to 20 making millions.
You don't have to sell your memes. You can just deposit them and use them.
Kyle and Shu, welcome on the podcast. Happy to have you here. I mean, you kind of having me here as well, as we are in your office. You guys are mostly known for 3AC Capital. Do you have a quick background about like what was 3AC Capital, and then we will talk about like what you guys doing now and what are the big plans?
Sure. 3AC was a crypto hedge fund, ran for about 10 years, and did a lot of investments in different coins, infrastructure, as well as projects. And now we have Oxfun, which is a meme coin perp exchange with meme coin collateral. And there's also 3AC V2, which is a meme coin on its own, in its own right, and that does swaps with other meme coins. So
Okay, so that hedge fund you run like for 10 years, that was mostly investment in like altcoin stuff or thing like that for 3AC?
Icon?
Altcoin.
Yeah,
Altcoins.
Altcoins. Yeah.
no, it was actually, Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well as early stage projects.
Yeah.
So we had pretty big positions in structured trades that were trying to arbitrage some kind of like Bitcoin derivative. So whether it's like, grayscale Bitcoin or whether it's, like a staked Ether versus Ether, we had a lot of these kind of large capacity arbitrage trades. Um, and that's how we kind of got big in the first place. We were very early in Grayscale Ethereum in particular. So
Okay, so arbitrage for people who don't know is like just like you see that something is trading at one price and it's trading somewhere else at another price, and you try to profit in between the delta of those two
yeah,
prices.
yeah.
And I mean, 3AC is also famous for the crash that happened with it. Now it's been a few years. With retrospect, what would you have done differently? Do you think like you could have seen like some trades that you were going to were not the right trades, or like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there were a number of trades that didn't play out well, even though they had previously. I think that sometimes, it's hard to tell when the music stops, but there were a lot of things that felt sustainable actually really weren't. So one was the Grayscale trade, which, you're basically locking up your Bitcoin and Ether into a trust, and then you wait some period of time and you get the shares. And we had kind of thought, well, it's always going to be in premium, or it's going to be at or zero, and then if it goes below, they're going to allow redemption, or they're going to approve it as ETF. But what ended up happening was that there was this period where it was trading at a big discount and they didn't approve ETF, and so despite you put one Bitcoin into this trust, the market, because so many people had done the same trade, they decided to value it at much lower than one Bitcoin. It was as low as like half a Bitcoin for one Bitcoin in the
Hmm.
trust, and similar for Ethereum. So that was something where I think, the sizing on that should have been better. And at least the kind of thinking about those scenarios.
What was the
The,
problem, for example, in that trade? Because yeah, like I think like some people will remember what happened in the previous bear market, and some people will come here and like they
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
So it's like we could buy basically Bitcoin via like a
yeah,
almost like on the stock market with the Grayscale ETF, like before that,
yeah, yeah, sure. So
and then it was the
this was
0.5.
before there were ETFs, right? This
Yeah.
was when there was simply a stock that held Bitcoin in it, that you could create shares of the stock by giving it Bitcoin. And
Hmm.
because of that, people would buy Bitcoin at higher prices than the actual Bitcoin inside the trust. And so that was like a big money gravy train for a lot of firms, because you could just kind of have access to capital and then put Bitcoin in and then hedge it, and then you get the money
Okay.
out. And so the problem is that eventually it became such a popular trade that everyone did it. And that was around the moment that the market turned as well. So
Hmm.
there wasn't actually that much demand to buy this Bitcoin stock, even though everyone was kind of lining up to do so, and you actually had no way to get your Bitcoin out of the trust at that time. There was no method to get it out. So if there had been a method to get it out, it would have been fine. But there was no method to get it out.
Hmm.
So we had a pretty big position in GBTC that ended up, the market valued it at half. Momentarily, for a few months, the market decided we don't know what the value of one Bitcoin in Grayscale is in real Bitcoin, because so many people had done that trade assuming that it would be in premium, and then they all had to sell. So it was a big liquidity crisis event. And but that's one example. I think because these trades were so correlated among many firms who were all doing these similar trades, there was like a number of blowups post Luna, because Luna itself was also a similar trade where UST was at some 20% interest.
Yeah.
And so there was this idea that it's a place to yield farm because you can get a higher yield than you can get elsewhere. And so after Luna collapse, it wasn't just that, Luna went down and UST went down. It was also that all the firms doing kind of yield farms, they were hurt by that. And so they also try to get out of GBTC. They try to get out of staked ether. So staked ether also, the Lido staked ether went from fully back like 100% ETH to being like 90% ETH.
Okay.
So also 10%, so not as much, but on
Yeah.
bigger positions it's still quite big.
And at that time, did you believe, sorry to cut you off, at that time, did you believe that Terra Luna and their algorithm for stablecoin was something good, or it was the same way you saw like, well, we can go in until the music stop?
I think that generally we thought it was good and could work. I think that jump felt similarly.
Okay.
I think that the particular way that it failed was quite unfortunate because it was that you had to have a number of things be true, right? You had to have there be a very weak method for restructuring, right?
Mhm.
Because for instance, when UST was already 20 cents, like a crisis price, it's actually relatively cheap to, let's say, buy and then bail out the protocol, right? But the problem is that you can't actually turn off there's no module to turn off the minting.
Mhm.
So in other words, because it was a little bit too decentralized, there was no kill switch basically. So essentially the protocol was minting Luna. Oh, sorry, it was basically minting new Luna tokens to buy UST. So it sells Luna, buys UST to try to maintain the peg.
Mm-hmm.
So the protocol is essentially infinite mints, right?
Okay.
Because that's just going in the background because it sees that UST is below the price.
Okay. Yeah. So.
And so essentially, if this had been halted, if this had an emergency halt, and then it restructured the UST into the fresh Luna supply, that would have been fine. Because Luna, even as a meme coin at the time, can be worth a lot of money because it's listed everywhere. Had this, people forget, but Luna was $10-$20 before they announced this UST thing.
Mhm.
Like, so because it had different, I mean, this anchor protocol thing. So I think that there was kind of a underestimation of how quickly it would unravel in that sense, and there's also not enough kill switches built in. Given
Okay.
that it is an experiment, you actually need kill switches. But I think it became a very tricky thing too, where I think he should have built it with more of a ecosystem. It was kind of his own Cosmos ecosystem, and then he had Bitcoin in, right? I mean, for instance, if he had BNB in the reserve, FTT in the reserve, then it would have been a lot easier to get, let's say, Binance and FTX to contribute to a restructuring,
Hmm.
right? Because they would have been stakeholders in that restructuring.
Wait. You've been shopping at the wrong place to get alpha. And that's why you keep buying the wrong stuff. For this, you need stockchain. Unfortunately, they don't have my size. But on stockchain, no matter what your portfolio size is, you need to have it.
Yeah.
And that's something that, in the traditional world, this happens all the time. And it's quite
Yeah.
common, right? Let's say during COVID, if you stay at a hotel, that hotel may have changed ownership, but you don't care and you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not public. It doesn't matter to the
Yeah.
public. Whereas here, I think it was something where, like, in crypto, people are too binary. So like either it's so over, or it's so back. Like actually, this could have been saved during that period. People just didn't have enough experience to really do it. Dokon didn't sleep for 6 days. People couldn't reach him. Everyone.
The guy that did sleep and that did know it was Barry Silver at Genesis, right? And he knew restructuring because that was his previous job. He worked at Julian and
Okay.
Loki, which is a giant restructuring firm. And in many ways, the last cycle was about actually the end, which you were talking about. It was all about restructuring. If you were
Yeah.
good at
Yeah.
restructuring,
Yeah.
you made it out. And restructuring is all about converting debt to
Yeah.
equity. It's about waiting for waiting through the liquidity crisis period, such that during the good liquidity period you can do better. And he did very well by that.
Okay.
But then the firms that couldn't because of the protocol reason or didn't have the experience, they get stopped out effectively, right?
Yeah. But for example, you say like if they had like FTX and BNB reserve, but like for example, imagine if there was a case, we still have the crash of FTX. And it's kind of like it lose one legs, still have two legs.
So
Bitcoin in.
so the Luna concept of like you have an algo stable,
Yeah.
which is backed by like a variety of coins, like that still works.
Yeah.
But the problem I think was twofold. Well, one is that he was growing TVL too fast, so he was going into audiences that didn't understand that this could depeg in these conditions, that it could repeg. For instance, if you get smart people to buy, who don't mind that if market goes down because they maybe even buy more, or they understand it's backed by these assets in a certain way, then it works. But the problem is that, and that would have worked in the first phase, and it did work in the first phase. But the problem is that he onboarded such aggressively in TVL that he was forced to simplify his message each time. And at some point, he simplifies it to, okay, 20% like savings account, boom. And he relies on the social proof of everyone, that it's on, it has Coinbase vaults, it has Binance vaults, and just says, because if you're, just looking at it on his face, you say, well, this is on Binance, this is on Coinbase. Of course, it's safe. Of course, it's somehow. So he was kind of onboarding a very large amount of money into UST that was completely unprepared for the idea of a DPEG.
That's interesting.
If he had been more patient and educated and done it slower, that could have still made it. I mean, think about like banks, right? Like the reason why it's a felony to FUD a bank in the US because you can create a bank run on any bank if you do so, right? Like all the banks are unbacked in some way, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially what happened was that he had the final phase of people he onboarded were extremely jittery. And so on a move lower, they're gonna panic themselves out, and in doing so, make it harder that they get out, right? So that's, I think if he could do it all over again, he would have just grown very slowly because he didn't have that many big competitors. Sure, there was Near and there was Tron, but these are much smaller than him. He didn't need to go the speed that he did. And also, because he had done the marketing so simply, he didn't want to lower the rate either because the marketing was so simple. He became scared that, well, if you lower the rate, then everyone's going to leave to the other ones.
Yes.
Right, because there was USDD and there was Near and USDN, and these were offering higher rates or similar rates, and so he was caught between that wanting to keep the growth and making sure that it's safe, right? Because algo stables are very reasonable and safe at small sizes, like among people that understand it. I mean, they have been around for years. It's not like they haven't been around. So they always tend to fail when it gets into a bigger phase where people are now thinking like, oh, now what happens? Because for the people in the early phase, they don't mind getting back the native token in the worst case, because they say, okay, well, worst case, I get back this liquid token that's listed on every exchange. Right. So
thank you. Yeah, and I think it's important to understand what happened before, because like now we're gonna change a little bit of different dynamic of the market, and then those panic moments, like I think like a lot of people have trauma from the previous bull market where there was like collapses everywhere. And then Carl, you mentioned like there was a lot of money into restructuring to be made. Why, for example, on 3AC, did you guys not try to have some restructuring around that?
That arguably was the biggest lesson, right? So we did we had, I think when you go to school and you like learn business or whatever, I studied finance and engineering. No one teaches you bankruptcy. Arguably the most important thing they should be teaching you. They teach you accounting and other useless things that you'll pick up along the way, but no one teaches you bankruptcy. And actually, the people that know that's tons of bankruptcies happen, and then they come out. Companies go in, they come out. There's restructurings. There are many, many, many things you can do. And that was just not an experience we had. We didn't have the lawyers in place for it. We didn't have the counselors in place for it. We didn't have the advisors. I think now we probably understand a lot more, but at that time we really didn't. And I think if we had a proper restructuring firm, like let's say we had engaged Houlihan Lokey or whoever, they would have come in and they would have said, okay, debt to equity, this is what we're going to do. This is what creditors going to get. This is what the engagement that people are going to have at various participation points. And you'd end up, probably similar to what Genesis or whoever is doing now.
I think, to be fair though, I think even like FTX should have also restructured and didn't manage to do so, in large part because I think and they had lawyers too, because I think that like everyone has a different incentive when things start hitting the fan, and so so it's just unless you're very organized and you're very like strong-willed, it's not that easy to do. Like Barry Silver he had great experience. He worked at Houlihan. He had issues before with other firms, so he's been through it. So he knows what it's like. He knows not that bad, and so. But when you're younger, you never failed. You think like in terms of like either it's all over or it's not, and it's just it's like not the case at all. But that's not easy for young people to learn through reading about it. Like you can't read about these things and learn it. You have to experience them. So I think I think that's the thing. Like I had a lot of friends in TradFi who were looking at FTX in particular and saying, how did that not restructure? Because this is a very valuable business invested in by very big companies. $30 billion companies. And I think Sam's mistake there is that he gave away too little equity. He did very small equity rounds at large valuations, but he had full control and there was no real board. And so because he wanted that control, and people didn't want to be, part of the board because they're like, you can just cook. But as a result, he didn't have that kind of senior people with him that were that had the experience.
Yeah.
His inner circle of lawyers too probably were not the restructuring kind. They were, practicing a different kind of law, and they had different incentives as well. And they were pushing him to go into,
I think it's that, if you take in investors who've made a very small bet on you, they will tell you, oh, I don't care. Like if it's getting messy, it's getting some, people on social media getting antsy. I don't want to touch it. So if you're a Sequoia or a Temasek or a big name, you're just going to be like, I don't have anyone qualified to do this restructuring in my company. I don't want to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because I have some, I have a lot of friends who are FTX alum because we all came up in that same generation, and there was a group within FTX that was had already raised $4 billion for the bailout through I believe it was Nomura, and because you have to understand this is a $30 billion exchange. This is second biggest exchange in the world, right?
Yes.
So they had already raised $4 billion, and if they had another week, they could have raised it. But back then, because everyone was so scared of losing all their money, and there was so much panic and voices, I think that the U.S. side they wanted to push him to file for bankruptcy, and he was basically cajoled. I mean, he was basically pushed into doing so in his own words. I think if he hadn't, there's many worlds where they were saying okay, because he committed fraud by telling people these are their assets and then he borrowed against them without giving them. Be that as it may, the exchange still has value anyways, because you can take the management out, put in new management, and it's still worth a lot of money. So I think that there was a unique way in 2022 where crypto lacked the gray-haired people around to just sit there and be like, what's the and Rich Handler, who's the CEO of Jefferies, he made a point in July 2022, maybe 4 months before FTX blew up, but after 3AC did, and he was like, how is FTX not in trouble right now? Because they have the same lenders as 3AC, and those lenders are under pressure. And so there's another big irony there too, which is in June 2022, when we had worked with some people on potentially doing a bailout restructuring, we talked to CZ, we talked to Sequoia, Paradigm, a few others, and SBF was quite against it. He was like, oh, there's no need for a bailout here. This doesn't make any sense. But if he was a little bit smarter, he would have seen that it's very much in his interest to get a bailout because we have the same lenders. So if he gets a bailout, he's fine. I mean, if we get a restructuring, then he's fine because the market will calm.
Yeah, there was a lot of events at the same time. I think that's quite like dynamite explosion.
A lot of PvP mentality.
Yeah, so I think he didn't, and and then the month after he's talking about how CZ's not allowed in DC, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think there's I think he overplayed his hand. I mean, even with Luna, I think he overplayed his hand because I don't think he even understood the positions in Alameda that well. I think he maybe had his own short on, or he had a small position, but he was a big fudder of it.
Yeah.
And the reasons for that are a bit, not a lot of people know this, but Jump started to sell Solana in early 2022, and Sam was very upset by that.
Public service announcement. Don't trade alone, otherwise you're going to end up buying a ton of those because you're going to be crying every day. That's why you should join the Investors Boardroom, which is the only group that is going to teach you everything about on-chain analysis because no one knows how to do it. But also, you're going to be in groups, so you're going to be searching in group. You're going to be doing everything, and it's not by people who just talk about it, it's by people who do. I made money with on-chain analysis. People in the Investors Boardroom do as well, and we are building the tool to analyze on-chain stuff. So check out the Investors Boardroom and get started today to get yourself a nice crew to trade together.
Because they had been caballing Solana together, right?
Yes.
And so and Jump was very supportive of Luna, obviously the biggest supporter of Luna, and did the famous May 2021 bailout of Luna, for which they got extra Luna tokens that were not disclosed to anyone. During that period, basically we had FTX senior people send us memos every day saying how Luna's a big problem, it's gonna blow up, all this kind of stuff. They were very upset that Luna was pumping and Solana was dumping. And so I think for Sam, he was like, okay, this is in a zero-sum way, this is taking attention away from Solana, and they were not brought into Luna early. We were not in Luna that early either, but I think that if Do Kwon was more diplomatic, he would have seen the need to do so more. I think he just thought well, he has Binance Labs in from earlier C, which they never sold. It's already strong enough that they don't need more, right? So I think but that whole game theory there is like if he had been more collaborative, more 333, he would have brought SBF in at any price because they wouldn't sell anyways. And now it's like he feels like he should use his brain power and his team to help that out.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah,
So
there's a lot of conflict of interest. It's interesting you mentioned there's not enough gray hair in that space at that time, and then you mentioned PvP, and I'm like, and then young people like having control of a lot of money, and now the thing is meme coins.
Yeah.
And like meme coin is like literally, I know kids who are like 16 to 20 making millions, and there's no gray hair in the space at all. But maybe the difference is that I think the previous bull market, like a lot was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get 20% on our money. It was kind of like banking
yes,
versus decentralized banking, and it's like who give us the best interest.
yes.
But I don't know about you guys, because that's why I want to have your opinion. Like, why do you think now? Plus, you both working into meme coins because, like, you have you launched Oxfun, right? Which is a not decentralized but semi-centralized hybrid. How you call it?
Yeah, CDFI.
CDFI exchange for meme coins with leverage and perp, so we can short and long meme coins, which is it's kind of crazy, right? Because already the price of meme coins would go up and down like really fast, and then we can have 5x to 10x on your platform.
So I think one of my realizations is like, why when Luna went down it's such a scam, but then when like something like Axie goes down 99%, it's not a scam. And the reason is because it's a game. Right?
Yeah.
When it's a game and you lose your money in the game,
Axie Infinity, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was a mobile game.
Yeah.
Pretty lame mobile game, but you could win some token or thing like that. It was kind of an economy going on around it.
I mean, they got 20% of the Philippines playing this game at one point.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend building teams. They say you want to buy out a team.
There were guilds that you could fund that would play this game.
Yeah, so
it was a very big game.
So that even though it fell similarly percentage-wise, it wasn't seen as much of a scam because people didn't put their whole net worth in it.
Yeah.
Whereas UST was something that people really said, they would compare the USDT versus or USDC versus the UST rate, and they would put it in UST. So that, like to your point, is you're trying to say this is something that is going to supplant your need for banking.
Yeah.
And that I think is very dangerous because what I realize is that the crypto industry is not necessarily qualified to make such statements or to build such infrastructure because it doesn't have, think about banking system itself, for all the protections and all the people involved, this still has banking failures every 10 years.
Yes.
And even those cases, what happens is on a weekend in a closed room, big wigs get together and they do a bailout, right? In the case of 08, it required almost like $1 trillion to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's even in TradFi. So the extent to which, crypto is supposed to be better at it. I think for a while there was this idea that code was going to be the reason why it gets better, but code is fallible. I mean, code is written by humans for now. Maybe if they're written by AI, it could be better. But, code written by humans, operated by humans, multi-sigs operated by humans, it's fundamentally like an order of magnitude riskier.
That's a good point.
While they're still representing to the public, we're trying to say that this is now better than your banking experience. So that I think is something that, is part of the reason why DeFi is not really picked up this cycle, because people are just not believing that's true anymore, right?
Yes, I agree. Yeah, because we haven't been also like real life experimentation, like real life things where DeFi was used. Like for example, even like UST was just basically, I'm gonna get a bit more free money there, so I'm putting there.
That's why memes are so great.
Yeah,
because there's no future of finance.
So when was the switch that you guys decided that all right, we're gonna go meme coins?
So some of our investors were very early in Pump Fund. They were the earliest investors in Pump Fund, and so we had been
some of your investors
in Oxfun.
Okay, so Oxfun was created. When was it launched?
Oxfun was launched earlier this year, and and basically one of the concepts that I think, we had done Doge last cycle, we'd done some meme coins last cycle, but this cycle, I think we didn't quite understand it fully until it was explained to me that you have NFTs last cycle, which went massive, right?
Yeah.
At some point, like $250 million of gas was burned to mint like stuff, right? In the case of Bored Apes. And so here, meme coins are basically an easier way to trade culture because it's all the liquidity is put, instead of fragmented across 10,000 PFPs, it's put into one ticker.
Yeah.
And so a lot of very successful meme coin teams that like the meme coin founder teams, as well as the meme coin infra, teams like Pump Fun, they were originally NFT-fi.
Yeah.
And so if you see meme coins that way, and then you also see it as this kind of populist reaction to, tokenomics and crypto have gotten worse and worse for retail over the last decade, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was on chain, you do a single price public sale.
Yeah.
Or then you had some launch pads that were really good, Binance, CoinList, and you were up like 30x or something by buying $1,000. And
Yeah.
then it became, that, as regulation came in, it became okay, you have Series A, Series B, Series C, equity with warrants for tokens for equity holders. Then you get this thing where it becomes like a Web2 model where there is successive rounds of private money, and then by the public times comes, retail needs to buy so that investors can sell.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
kind of like that.
so meme coins is a big reaction against that, which is just saying, why would I buy these coins? And then so the way that they counter that a bit is with airdrops.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm going to give you some tokens.
Yeah.
So that's why the two big metas this cycle are like points and airdrops and meme coins. So
It's also a question of what's the better meme. Like Ethereum used to be the culture coin. That's one.
True.
That's one kind of meme. Like
Yeah.
A16Z DeFi coins. Okay, that's another kind of meme. Or like actual memes.
Yeah.
like
Right.
like we're seeing this cycle. What is that? What is actually a better meme? And I think people are just realizing, culture can be made through that, and there's no need to have all the other stuff built behind it. That actually not such a good meme. Like those are mechanics that may or may not work. Some of them work well, some of them not so much. But the actual meme itself can be embodied in just a culture coin.
it's more grassroots also, right? Like so many ideas have to get constantly battling each other, and then the good ones float to the top, or the the most successful ones, and so whereas for a lot of the kind of VC force narratives, the cycle, the reason why they've mostly failed, or a lot of them have failed, is because they have a lot of, it could have already been a bad idea like 6 months ago, but there's that push to get it to TGE anyways. And that's what something that you see in Web2 a lot, right? Where they're like, okay, let's just get it public, and then at least we have some liquidity, right? So whereas
TGE, token generated events, right?
yes, whereas for meme coins, you don't really have this, right? It's not like
Yeah.
you have this kind of, okay, we must make this meme coin work. I think the constant
Well, if you have a big bag,
fair. But I think
Yeah.
I think from the perspective of the market,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing.
there's
Like,
no such thing as too big to fail. Like Bowden, boom, down.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you explained it right. I think like also like we have to understand like who is the endpoint of the market, and it's kind of like retail. And then they saw every time the project and nice became like, all right, VC fund a company that does a crypto, and then that one's gonna deploy a lot of marketing because their goal is to make money from the retail, and the VCs to make money from the retail. So it's kind of like retail always had like a game where the odds were statistically against them.
Yes.
And then also it started to become a little bit smarter. So like now you could have like easier way to see like when it's going to be unlocks of tokens and things like that.
Yeah.
Analyze more the distribution. So I think like those combined were like, well, if I'm going to get flat, I might just buy some Retardio or whatever coins it is. Like,
Retardio's up a lot, so you would.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
You
the
would've done
thing.
well.
Like that's the thing. Like I think like out of everything that's been tried to be tokenized since 2017, it seems that internet or the people as of today choose like we're gonna tokenize jokes
Yes.
and memes, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and then that's probably the easiest thing to tokenize first. I think like I mean market prove it by itself. But what about you guys? So why did you launch Oxfun in the first place if it was not like centralized for? I mean, focused on meme coins at the beginning. What was the goal?
So I think that there's a lot of demand for portfolio margin. That was one of the big things that FTX did well.
Portfolio margin?
Yes, which is the meaning is that you can trade with many different types of coins as margin. In other words, if you have an altcoin, if you have some random coin that you don't want to sell, but you want to use it to buy perps on Solana or buy perps on Ethereum, like Ether, you can do so on Oxfun. And that's I think very powerful because it gives you more things to do with your capital. It's not just this coin that sits there and it's dead, right?
Yeah, because to explain for people, you correct me if I'm wrong, but like when we trade perps with leverage, so for example, with like a leverage at 5x or 10x, we need to have collateral to be able to secure the movement that's going to happen. And what you're saying is that most of the time they will use like only like the top most massive coins, or like some they will just use stable coins,
That's right.
but you created Oxfun because you will let people use like all the different coins they
Yeah,
have.
it has a
That's
novel mechanism to allow portfolio
Okay.
margin, and I think also we can list the long tail or like very small market cap meme coins for perps as well. You know,
Yeah.
the leverage is not 100x, it's maybe 5x,
Yeah.
but still it gives you a little bit more kind of opportunities to trade around smaller ranges.
Yes.
So I think, you know, that's something that I'm pretty confident will be a big market because it's you know, to be able to be very early in some meme coins and also do well as they go up and also buy perps, you know, without having to sell the ones you already bought.
Yeah.
That is powerful. I mean, of course, if you're right, you make a lot. If you're wrong, you will lose a lot. But that's you know, I think it's a product that people need. And so
And it's also a unique product. There is no, I mean, if you look at other exchanges,
Yeah.
almost all the other perp exchanges are stablecoin collateral for the most part.
Yes.
And frankly, they just don't have memes. We actually have this like little monitor shows our listings versus
Yeah.
other listings. I think almost like 70% of our listings, you know, people just don't even have.
Absolutely.
So if
Yeah.
you want to trade, there's just nowhere else to trade.
and that was
This
one
is the only place.
Yeah, and that was one of the big reasons why FTX did really well in the early days because they had this portfolio margin. You could trade with a lot
Okay.
of DeFi coins as collateral.
Yeah.
You could trade with Solana as collateral. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, at that time, you know, BitMEX was only Bitcoin. You could only use Bitcoin. And then some others, they could only use stables. And of course,
Yeah.
the opportunity cost of that is massive when, you know, spot coins start doing really well. Like imagine you're a perp trader on exchanges that only accept USDC. You're sitting there now holding USDC, earning 0%, and then betting on if Bitcoin's gonna go up or down. Meanwhile, somewhere else, you know, they're holding meme coins that are up 20x.
Yeah.
You know, and meanwhile they have more options to trade. So I think that's
So-
something that I've seen from last cycle. I think is very interesting to play it back, to run it back this cycle.
What was the market cap we listed Retardio at?
5 mil activity.
So when it was 5 mil, we accepted it as collateral, was the first coin
Yeah.
that we accepted as collateral. So you could deposit you could buy Retardio
Was
and
the first
deposit
coin?
it. It was the first meme.
I think
The first
Normilio,
meme, yeah.
Normilio and
Retardio. Yeah.
Why?
Well, we had a
What are investors?
well, we had an
Suggest
AUX
it.
investor
Yeah.
who because we
When you say investors, is people who trade on it, or you mean like people who invest?
No.
people who bought people who bought the AUX token in size, and then they had some ideas for
Okay,
yeah.
so you did a raise of funding before for Oxfun before
Yeah,
for launching it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And they're kind of advisors as well. But
Okay.
either way, Retardio, big early Retardio whale, got us in at 5 million market cap, listed
Yeah.
on the platform. You could deposit as collateral, and you could then trade perp. You could buy more Retardio with your Retardio on leverage
Yeah.
at 5 million market cap. That, I mean,
Like now it's at like 160 million.
yeah, exactly. Like a lot of these memes are up a lot, but we tried to be early. That was the whole point. We try to be, you know, we can't list, 100K cap coins. That's more for other platforms that have spot. But once they kind of get to like the 5 to 10 million market cap range, we think that
Yeah.
almost all the reasonable ones should have perp markets as well.
Yeah.
And should be accepted as collateral.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, because like the main problem, I guess, like is when people were trading perps, is like, oh, I don't want to sell my coin that I have here, so I can be able to have more liquidity to
Yeah, exactly.
sell. Because like if you believe in something and then I believe it's gonna continue to go up. So
it also triggers taxable events whenever you sell spot to other
Yeah.
coins. And so.
yeah,
I mean, rich people do the same thing, by the way, in the real world. When they want to use their assets, if you're like the founder of like some listed Fortune 500 company, you borrow against those shares. You don't
Yeah.
have to sell those shares every single time. This is kind of the same concept. You hold whatever you want to hold, and then, you know, go
Yeah.
trade whatever you want to trade.
Yeah.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the big idea for Oxfun was at the beginning with this, and then after you started to have the word about like, well, meme coins are getting bigger and bigger.
Yes, exactly. So we have this portfolio margin platform, and then as it turns out, meme coins just happen to be our biggest adoption. You know,
Yeah.
we expected kind of well, I think in the early days we expected more activity on like mainnet or like from base, but then we also found out it's like almost all Solana users.
Yeah.
So it's also
Yeah,
I mean,
find out the hardware as well.
yeah.
Launched the product on base, and I was like, all right, 1 month usage, and then after that, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
not again.
Same.
So okay, and what do you think actually about the meme coin super cycle? What do you think? Because you guys traded like assets that people would call before utility coins and everything for like more than 10 years at like really high level, and now you're trading degenerate stuff.
I think meme coin Supercycle is a good slogan. I think that the meme coin as percentage of overall market share is going to go higher and higher.
Yeah.
Because it's a mixture of NFT culture and of utility tokens that were really just meme coins. Like our something like a Cardano or Ripple, it really was just a meme coin. In the sense that it gets attention and it gets a story, and then through that people buy it, for different reasons, but usually not to actually use the token in the network.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people bought Cardano as gas for Cardano network, right? So that's something that I think that will continue the cycle. I think for specific meme coins, it's very hard to say which ones will do extremely well, which ones won't, because this is an incredibly fast-moving market, right? Like just last week, there weren't all these AI tokens on the market,
Yeah.
and now everyone's saying,
The meta changed fast.
the meta has changed very fast, and I think that for people who get involved, they should always do their own research and be prepared for absolute loss on any specific coin. I think that in a way the meme coins are better at teaching that than utility tokens, because meme coins,
Yes.
when the coin is out of favor and that doesn't matter, it dies instantly.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of, so it's almost cool in a way, because it like so like one thing I've noticed about the young Zoomers who trade meme coins a lot is that they move on from trades absurdly fast.
Yeah.
Right. And so they don't get married to their bag in that sense. They're like, okay, I had this.
Not the card and the holders.
And they're better at risk management in that sense
Yeah.
too, because they're like, okay, I can max put X percentage of my portfolio in any one coin because I know that there's like a 90% chance it goes to zero. Whereas in the past it was like, when you buy an altcoin, you don't think there's any percent chance it goes to zero, like actual zero. So this new generation is very familiar with zero. It's like instantly familiar. So that's cool in a way.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the meta change because it's an attention economy, right? And then I think like everything, like for me now, even the stock market is mostly traded based on the attention that a stock would get instead of like whatever they do. So the memes and how the news cycle goes will change all the time, and then there's gonna be just a few that will continue to hold like that.
Yeah.
But you also have a fund now, right? The 3ACV2 is a bit invested in meme coins.
It's a meme coin. It's a meme coin on its own. It's a meme coin in its own right. So the way to pronounce it is actually 3 arrows with a Z, and then Capital with the EL. So
Okay.
So that's the pronunciation that we use.
I like that you say it in a really serious way.
Oh, I'm so serious. But yeah, so the cool thing is that there's a 1% tax on it.
Okay.
And each time, so those taxes are used to do these token swaps with projects. And so, they are buying 3C and they're giving in their token. It's kind of bonding in their token. And so over time, this like, more and more meme coins will do these collabs, and some of these may do very, very well. Some of them may go to zero, but it's like
So we can swap like from 3AC to meme coin A.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get there's 1% fee in each of the swap, you say, or like
No.
The swap is on the fee is on Uniswap. So you can
That's for Ether versus 3C. But the swap I'm discussing is that meme coin projects can apply to swap their token for 3C, and then 3C will then hold that token.
And it's recorded on the website actually. There's
it's ERC20, right? Then
ERC20.
And can you work with Solana coins as well? Or?
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
So that's a very early stage. It's very experimental. I consider it performance art in a lot of ways, because it's like the idea of a meme coin fund on like run it back on chain.
How is that a meme coin fund then? Because the 1%, what's the 1% doing then? Like, what do you do with that fee? Do you take that fee into the meme coin, or is it the 3AC? Like,
so the fee is taken from the pool in 3AC while the Ether keeps growing in the pool. So this has like a $7.5 million liquidity pool now. It's one of the biggest pools for any meme coin on Ethereum or Solana. But basically, then from this 3AC, we can then use this to swap with projects. So
it's like a meme coin trade.
It's like a 3-3. Think of like a 3-3, right? Like where they're holding 3AC and 3AC is holding their meme coin and showcasing it in this portfolio. So
we actually get tons of people pitching.
So it's kind of performance art too, because it's like
tons of projects saying, do a swap with us, like let's collab, let's do something.
Why would they want that?
I don't know. It's a detention economy at the end of the day, I guess.
Detention economy is fun.
So like you could centralize a part of the attention under the 3AC fund that becomes a big thing, and then that's like a
Yeah, I mean,
proper.
it's been a good growth flywheel for Oxfun as well, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of those users that come, like they come through the 3C side, they will then trade with those coins on Oxfun, because they're already in the meme coin ecosystem.
Yes.
So I see it as quite complementary. And I think that over the longer term, there's going to be even more synergies that can be done, because there's ultimately there will be more and more launch pads in the future, and there will be more and more ways to launch tokens. I don't think we found the exact correct way to launch memes
Not
yet.
yet.
And yeah, so I think that that's something that, just the last week's Pump Fund made 60,000 sold, right, which is about $10 million in 1 week. So I think if you look at where on crypto people are really willing to pay fees to do something on chain, I think meme coin has absolute massive market share,
Yes.
right? Absolute commanding, and this is despite not a single VC almost being in it,
Yeah.
right? Aside from a few of our friends who are like very early in meme coin and NFTs, so that I think is just shows that, when something does very well and succeeds despite no one really shilling it, that's powerful.
Mhm.
A lot of times in this cycle, people get over focused on like what's the next narrative, or
Yeah.
what's the next story, or like how do you
Mhm.
this is actually a mistake of mid curvers, because when they hear about a coin going up and then they buy it, they think that they're buying it because they're hearing about it because of narrative.
Yeah.
They don't understand what it takes to buy it before anyone's talking about it. So they think everything pumps because of narrative. But
Yeah.
actually it's the opposite. First of all, price leads narrative. So and how do you have price going up and things doing well? Those forces are very different than the forces of narrative. So like arguably, if you look at a lot of the narratives on Ethereum this cycle, the reason why they all haven't really hit properly, whether it's restaking, whether it's something else, because again, you're telling a story about something to someone, but why do they care, right? Whereas the Solana mentality has been very like consumer crypto. It's like, I'm not telling you a story. Here's an app. You press buttons. You wonder which will go up faster.
Yeah, I agree for this. Like, I mean, Ethereum restaking, liquid restaking is just a massive headache. And then in a way, the problem is that product is only good for people who bought Ethereum at $10.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, otherwise, like if I
It's a
arrive
linear
now,
return on
it's
your
like
capital.
why would I go in now? Like it'd be like, no, it would not be interesting. You say like there's a lot of things with meme coins and NFT. I think like NFT, like I would disagree on that in some ways, because NFT for me, they were trying to force down the culture that didn't exist, and that was like always we create a new ecosystem.
Mm.
Where meme coins, they just take what we have in life already. They just take what we know.
That's a very
in
good
most
point. That's
ways.
a very good point, because meme coins, they're taking in information from the real world,
Yeah.
existing facts and jokes and things, and that's why so many meme coins are basically reclaiming ideas from the early internet and saying,
Yeah.
here, what do we think about this?
Yeah,
Right.
because I think like yeah, and then I saw that a lot actually in the conferences. I was quite surprised, or like kind of crypto were closing down on themselves, where like crypto people would do project for crypto people, and then not knowing that we need to onboard more people, and then
I totally agree with this.
Yes.
That's a very, very fair point.
yeah, it's like already like just before some people were talking about a layer two, and then it's like if you ever talk to a normies how to send whatever coin on the layer two, it's just a hassle. It's like, oh, you have to bridge it, and then they can't understand how.
Well, or if you have this NFT collection, you have to explain why this is good.
Yeah, and then after you have to
It's
analyze the
not, it's
trade.
coming from, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I still think NFTs are great, by the way. But I agree that
I mean, yeah, in a way, the technology is not bad, but I mean, it depends for what kind of collectibles people like. It just seems
Sure.
that it's, I don't know, there's a lot of dynamics that go like outside the world, and then I think like that's what like Murad was talking about. Like people want to belong to a community or belong to something,
yes,
and then when everything is virtual, I think there's also a lot of things physical. Like I don't have the numbers, but I bet if you check the number of collectibles physical, it grew like a lot, because I know a lot of friends that would just buy like random stuff that they collect, when actually NFT did not have any sort of growth. So I don't know if people want to collect digital stuff anymore, and then might go full physical, and the future will tell us. And then actually I want to know more like what you guys think. Like do you invest in meme coins like DJ way, like you go buy some stuff on Pump Fund, or
Our team does.
so you have a team of people that does that.
People on our team, they're some of them, you know, they're very deep into that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
we watch it pretty closely, but honestly, like we're boomers at this point. Like
That's good to acknowledge it. Like I had this like as well. I'm
Mhm.
already a boomer in it.
you know, because like the pump on site, it gives me a seizure, not in a bad way, not in a bad way. If I want a seizure, I can get it. But you know,
What do you mean if you want to see you can get it?
I mean, yeah, like I have to lie down after I take a look at it for more than 5 minutes. But it's very good for its
Do
generation.
you use TikTok?
No, I don't use TikTok.
Okay. Do you use any like what kind of social media? Anything you consume? Or?
So mainly X, and then
Okay,
like you know the
He
older
calls it
stuff.
X though. He doesn't call it Twitter.
Yeah, that's
not full boom.
right. Yeah, that's
I'm trying to get.
do you some exercise every day? Eggs. What about you, Kai?
Same. I mean, we kind of have this idea to always bring in talent,
Yeah.
and that's something that back in the three arrows capital days, before three arrows capital, that we were always very good at, is like kind of aligning and recognizing talent and bringing them in.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that, you know, when NFTs were early, we recognized that they were going to be big, but we didn't know anything about NFT, and we knew we weren't going to quite get there. But we could find the best guy, and then we
Yeah.
could do something, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of feel the same
You don't
about
have to be the guy to push
kind
the
of
button yourself. You have to be kind of, you know,
guide
look at
the
a back-
infra. I got some of the gray hair now too, by the way. I can
Yeah, I
I
can
can
see
I
that,
can be
yeah.
that gray haired guy. But
But
but we can also recognize talent and bring it in.
Listen,
We got some really
same
good,
in DeFi
really good guys.
where like the kids are like under 24 on average. That would
okay.
look good.
Yeah,
Because-
I think now
because you have
now
to
it's still
think
the
from
case.
you have to have no preconceptions in a way, and
That's true.
you have to
And
learn the
be
thing
delusional,
raw.
maybe.
Yeah.
Be delusional. Like it feels like when I think like everyone who start to enter into meme coins, you feel like, but this thing's never gonna stop.
Hmm.
But by definition, it's always. I mean, not by definition, by history, everything always stop.
Hmm.
We just don't know in which way it's gonna go because it feels like if it's a casino never stops in a way. I mean, like now, of course, there's competition with because it was kind of an entertainment before, and then there's other thing. So it's like is meme like my
If Murad ever cuts his hair, it stops. He needs to keep it
he
going.
had short hair before, looked really different. So that might be
If as long as he keeps it going, we're
if you go to
yes.
go gray hair. I don't know. I'm like, is meme coins gonna be an asset that's like outside the market and just gonna move in its own way? It's addictive, so everything addictive.
It still has
but-
beta to the market. It's paired in Sol, right? So essentially, when Sol goes up, it has this really nice two-way effect, similar to what happened with Ethereum ICOs, right? When the money's raised in Ether, and then as Ether goes up, the people are like, well, this token must be worth more because I paid for it in Ether. And then also, you know, it's easier for tokens to go up in Ether because there's a simple money effect, which is that money going to buy a token increases it by more than its market cap, right? So the multiplier, you know, they say on Bitcoin is like 15 to 1, right? Like $1 in, you know, increases the market cap by $15,
Okay.
right? And in the case of meme coins, it's more like 100 times, right? So that's why you have coins with 100 million pools with 1 million liquidity, because
Sometimes even $1 billion MCAPs
sometimes even billions.
with $1 million
Yeah.
pool.
So
That's the best.
Well, that's how you
Like-
that's how you know this is not a whales game. People talk about these cabals and how they're
Cabal,
but
yeah.
at the end of the day, like, you know, no
cabal
one
doesn't mean
from
they're
this
rich.
cabal can exit. It's
Cabal
got a
is-
million pool.
Cabal's a state of mind, right? It doesn't mean that they're rich. It just means that they band together. It's like
Yes,
they're
yes.
nice together. I
Yes,
think-
yes.
But that's why I think I think on the perspective for human psychology and movement of crowd is fascinating because you can see how one idea that can be from a group of people can, because like every meme coin we're selling the idea that this meme coin is good and then this meme coin gonna go up because the meme is good at the beginning, and then even that's why like even a cabal, like some group managed to push coins that were useless, not fun and nothing, just with having a good size enough of attention. And that's where like you can see some movement. I remember one, like I think it was called Cat Dog. It was terrible, but it was
Yeah.
farmed by different Twitter profile that farmed Twitter. They had tons of engagement and they were pushing that down. So that's kind of like the interesting thing. I mean, we could go on and on about like what meme coin does to to people, and I think we don't have the answers yet. We will see later.
Yeah.
So if you don't trade on pump fund, where do you trade when they come on Radium and others something like that, or it's like you just wait that they're on Oxfun?
We just advise for Oxfun and we figure out what's the right direction, and the team does
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
So why would someone, for example, trade on Oxfun instead of trading directly buying their meme coin?
Well, I think Oxfun has at least 3 things that nobody else has.
Okay.
The first one we talked a lot about is the idea that you don't have to sell your memes. You can just deposit them and use them.
Yeah.
Don't sell your memes. The second thing is that we have more listings than any other perp exchange. Like more than half of our listings, no one else has. Literally, we're the only perp listing. And then the third thing would be a lot of the social element. So we have some staking kind of products that are interesting for people that kind of like trade for you. We have some other, the degen feed where people pick up a lot of alpha. You can see that, influencers or whoever posting in there.
Yeah.
Some interesting calls. There were a couple guys that called like Sigma the other day, and that had a nice run. And then but you can really get some interesting info there. And then like these battle vaults too, and you can see those. So I think all that kind of stuff just becomes like this social thing that, it's all about being early, right? And it's all about being.
Yeah, and then you can also have this flavor. I think like the interesting point is like, for example, for people who have a certain limited capital or whatever, there's some size of trade where, for example, if the coin is already at $30 million market cap or $50 million market cap, you can't go in with a small portfolio if you want a good return. But if you know that it's gonna go up, then leverage can help you. Or if you want it to go down as well, you can short it. And I think that's the two side of it. So are you still investing in the space, or you more just building around now?
I think building and advising on projects is more fun. I mean, last cycle we already had our fair share of a lifetime's worth of investing and trading. I think it's life is finite. This world is impermanent, so it's more fun to try out things from all angles, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So as of today, like you're not gonna give me like which coin I should invest in?
No, absolutely not.
That's terrible.
The degen feed.
These
These are the trenches.
the new trenches.
The new trenches.
And so
I think I've seen you in there, no?
Yeah.
You posted.
I posted after yours.
Okay.
So that's why I think
Did you make some money on Sigma? No? Or which one?
I don't remember which one it was, and then you went in and I said, okay, I just follow Carl. See, that's how I got your attention. I was like, oh, I like this guy. He does the same as me. So how does it feel actually to be building compared to trading?
This is a good question. I think building is actually I enjoy it a lot more than trading.
Yeah.
I think building is it's incremental because each thing you do each day, you can see how it builds in the next day. At the same time, like I think trading is fun too. Like a lot of builders I know, they're like, God damn, building sucks. I just want to trade the market. It's so much faster to make money. And then a lot of traders I know, like after they have like, some big drawdowns, they're like, you know what, I should just be a builder. So I think grass is always greener. And I think the best builders, they actually are often also traders, and vice versa, because I think it does help to understand the whole of what's going on. Like I've seen some cases where builders have no clue what's happening in the market the whole cycle and they build their own thing.
I know them. That's why we're building tools now. Because like so many people don't understand what's going on with meme coins. So it's like we pulled up devs and they're like, we're gonna build our own stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. But then you have to.
Yeah. I remember at Brussels ETC, I was telling people, this is like meme coin stuff. And they're like, you think meme coins are going to be around in a month? And I was like, in a month? Like, that was where people's minds were in Ethereum. They're like,
it's crazy. Yeah, but it's like, I think it's a lot of the sunk cost. Because I see like a lot of people that are like, no, I'm not going to touch meme coin and things like that. I don't know about you guys, but even at the beginning, I was like, yeah, but I don't know. And then after, when you start understanding, you say, you know what, maybe I'm wrong, because it's true. Like I've been through so many cycles and then nothing happened like really with all the utility project. So it's like, there might be something there. And then when you experience what's happening really into it, like when you join your first Telegram group or whatever, like that goes into meme coins, you're like, oh wow, people are passionate about this. Like they do this like for real.
Yeah.
You went $20 to 20K.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah.
On a live stream.
Yeah.
Like you can't do that in DeFi right now. So
it will be really complicated. So that's the thing, like as well as an investor, it's like I mean for me, like it's just avoid the mid curve. So then it's like as I see it, is like you get Bitcoin that's gonna be your thing that you can hold for 10 years, 20 years, you don't have to worry about it. And then after, like, go full degen. But if you try to be in the middle, like, you're just gonna get rinsed by VCs and then project that you don't understand. And then
Yeah.
you can't, like, I mean, we had to read white papers, we had to read the code and things like that. That's not how people want to invest. And then they showed it. Like, they want to invest when Elon Musk tweets.
Yeah.
Or then when the Nvidia guys goes on and then he's wear cool jackets.
I think there's a particular pain about the idea, like when you do research, you then lose more money, right? Which is why a lot of, for a lot of Zoomers I interact with, when I send them something that's longer than 2 paragraphs, that they'll just say TLDR and they just won't read it, and they'll be very proud of not be able to read. I think that's like one element. And then the second is that it's even worse if you read and then you lose money because you buy the coin after reading about it. So if they lose money because they thought it was like, they heard about it, it was hyped, and they buy it and they lose, like, well, whatever. But if they put in their effort to understand something and then they still lost money, then it creates real anger. So I think that's another way where utility tokens have this big disadvantage, because it creates more anger when you lose money buying it. Whereas when you buy a meme coin, you lose money, you just move on to the next one.
Yeah.
It's like there's an analogy made by Cousin Crypto. Right?
I was just about to say this.
Yeah, maybe you can recap.
Is it better if I?
I can say it because
You say it.
But basically, it's like, it's like when your uncle molests you.
Didn't happen much to me, but
Yeah.
Well, that's deep.
If if your uncle molests you, that's utility tokens, because you know who did it. You know who's dumping it. In meme coins, it's everyone molesting, or it's random person.
And it's called meme coins right on the surface. There's no future of finance.
Like, that's the problem. I did a launch of a meme coin live. I was probably the first live launch on YouTube.
Wow.
And I was there on call then.
Okay.
And I was receiving like that thread and things like that. I was like, guys, I didn't even sell. I didn't make any money. I launched this. You guys PvP'd on yourself. Like, there people, I mean, everyone wants to find someone to blame. And I think
Mark Andreessen figured out the solution. You're supposed to give
AI
a grant to an AI agent, and then the AI agent launches the coin.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, that's the smartest way. Man. That's a crazy thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I still they would try to find someone to blame. So it's always the playing meme coins, like who I'm gonna try to find to blame for it. But
fundamentally, they move on faster.
Yeah,
they realize the game they're playing.
Yeah, that's for sure. So that's what I think. Like, I mean, for me, it's the most fair market they could ever have on crypto, and then maybe in general, because
I absolutely agree, because you can see all the actions on chain.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, particularly if you use stockchain.com. No, I'm kidding. That's one. But yeah, but it's true. Like, everyone is up to search it, and then you can see it, and then you also, like, the contracts, you don't have to read anything anymore. Like, everything is done for you. That's why I think it's the best way for people to onboard in crypto, like, for sure. Because
it's definitely onboarding the masses this time. And
it's gonna, like, now it's still fairly low, but like I think, like, once, like, there's gonna be a change, and then everyone's gonna switch to it.
I don't know. I've noticed our follower accounts are starting to tick up a little bit, so retail is coming.
Yeah.
Not here, but it's coming.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Meme coins is like less than 2% market cap compared to the rest of it, or something like that. It's crazy. So when the strongest crowd to convert is gonna be the Ethereum guy. The two invested deep in it. Can you imagine you spent 4 years building restaking layers and tell you no, just buy Retardio?
I think Ethereum eventually they will have to embrace meme coins, because they did it themselves before. Shiba Inu was on Ethereum, right?
Yeah.
And PayPal
I mean,
on Ethereum.
yeah, the thing is they're gonna have to embrace, but then all the technology and everything that was built around the tools.
Yes, exactly.
They are not for that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to do that, and then counting the gas fees and stuff. But that's why, like, I mean, it's an interesting chain, because that money is different. Like, a lot of devs been paid in Ethereum for a while, and then they have those stack, and then it's gonna be an interesting market. So no coins to chill today.
No.
Except 3 Arrows Capital.
3 Arrows Capital
as well.
Capital. Yeah.
Oxfun has a native token.
Is it VC backed token, Oxfun token?
No.
Is there any unlocks, or how did?
No, fully unlocked.
All right, I'm gonna dig into that. Well, thank you guys. It was amazing. It was a pleasure to have your side of the story and see a bit your insights of the market. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.